your now, that's what's important. We experience a collapse in our life structure most of the time because we failed to funeralize failed yesterdays. You have to be strong enough basically to realize you can elevate out of your current situation. Instead of looking at where you think you should be by now, look at where you have grown out of. There are many individuals who need help with their blueprint, and I want to be that vessel, nothing special, just that mouthpiece to inspire you to construct the best version of your life that you can be. Welcome to the LifeStruction with Eric podcast. I am your host, Eric. Thank you for tapping in today. I am beyond excited. Why am I excited? I'm excited because I have Mrs. Terrilyn Minifield as our guest today. I met Terrilyn and her husband probably a little over 10 years ago. And you know how you meet some people and you just fall in love with their spirit. I mean, they were and still are so humble, down to earth, and more than anything, they love God. And I mean, they're just great people, great people. And Terrilyn also is a podcaster. She's has a powerful voice in the podcast world. She's a host. She's the host of the Resilient Living podcast, which I love. And just like here on LifeStruction, she talks pretty much about life lessons, healing, self-development, marriage, and so much more. And I just love what she's doing. Just love what she's doing. And you know what? Matter of fact, I'm just going to stop talking and I'm going to bring her on so she can just kind of share with us a little bit about who she is and what she does. Hello and welcome to the show, Terrilyn. How are you?
Hi, Eric. I'm good. I'm so excited about being here with you. So thanks for asking.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for taking the time to be a blessing to the Life Struction family today. We're going to jump before we jump in on our discussion. Take the time and share with us a little bit about what it is that you do, a little bit about you, family, career, all that good stuff.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm Terrilyn Minifield. I have been married. This is going to be my 27th year of marriage. 33 years of marriage credit
Wow.
because we count it all. We
Yeah.
count all of them. I have a blended family, so 6 children in total. All of our children are adults. So my husband and I, we get to play the best part in our lives. We are the superheroes of our grandchildren's lives. I work full time for a Fortune 100 company, and I have a podcast, the Resilient Living podcast, that actually I will be observing my year anniversary on February the 1st. So it's been a year since I've been on the podcast. I am actually into all things having to do with wisdom. And that's where the podcast came from. It came out of my desire for us to take credit of the wisdom in our lives and use that wisdom to help ourselves make better decisions and
Yes.
also share with other people to have a better quality of life, that we have more choices. So that's where the podcast burst out of that desire. And my husband and I, we pastor Word Life Church here in Chandler, Arizona. And we've been doing that for the past 8 years. And I'm wrapping up my dissertation. So I will be a doctor of education here this
Come
year.
on now.
So I'm just saying I don't like to have any time because I don't have any free time. But I love being busy and keeping myself active and moving towards whatever goal that God would have me to do. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow. So now I'm really, really honored to have you on because you're very, very busy. So I've heard about the dissertations
Yes.
and how people stress out about them when they're going through that. So I know that your time is very, very valuable. So hey, thank you so much. And my hats off to you. Now that you sit there and you kind of chimed in and told everything about you, pretty much how you wrapped it up. Now I'm really like, I feel bad for myself because all of that you named, you're coming up on your 1 year
Yes.
podcast anniversary. Uh, the end of February will be my 3rd year.
Oh,
I'm
awesome.
sorry. I'm sorry. My 2nd year anniversary. But I'm I'm like, dude, you're slipping because I just hit my 50th episode last week. And
Okay.
then I look at you and I think you're up to like 52 episodes. But I mean, hey, 52 episodes, 52 weeks in a year. So I guess I was the
Absolutely.
ones I've been slacking for like 2 years.
Well, I would never want you to walk away from any conversation or anybody to walk away thinking that you have to compare yourself to somebody else. This is an honor to be here because I've seen your podcast, I know you, and I know the heart of what goes forward. And so it's never a time of comparing, it's just that you're doing and operating in what you should be doing. So no matter how long that takes or how short people think that you're doing something, the goal that you have to keep in mind and know is that you're making a difference. So I'm excited because you did share your space with me on my podcast and change people's lives. That it never equates to the matter of time that it takes. It's the quality of what you use that time for. So you've done good work. I'm learning from you today. Just we were talking a little bit earlier. You're teaching me. And so never a comparison, only a celebration.
Wow. You you moving a little you moving ahead a little too fast here because you kind of almost an answered something that I was going to ask you earlier, but I guess that's just God speaking through you. That's yeah, but you're exactly right. You and that's one of the things that I've really been working on. For my within myself. You
Yeah,
know, to never compare, never to
right.
compare, and pretty much to create my own path and
Absolutely.
just be different. And as long as you're bringing about change, we can't compare ourselves
Abs-
to others. The main thing is just making sure that we are consistent in what we do,
Absolutely. Right.
because there are some people that depend on hearing your voice weekly, and there's
Right.
people that depend on hearing my voice weekly you know
Right.
and so you just have to make sure that you are you know remaining consistent, because it's people
Yeah.
that their lives are being changed by what
Right.
it is that we're doing.
Yeah. And I will add to that is that sometimes I don't feel like I show up completely the way that I want to show up, but
Yeah,
showing up is what makes the difference because,
right.
to your point, we have a lot of different things going on in our lives.
Yeah,
And the whole point of our podcast is just to connect with people to remind them of whatever things that they've overcome, things that they want to move towards. And just showing up sometimes is great. So I wouldn't say every episode has been absolutely marvelous, but I would say the heart of the episode is still to help somebody relate or know. And you, like me, have an international audience.
right,
So that's
right.
amazing because, with different cultures, different things that are
Yeah,
going on, you never know how your experience is being interpreted based on their culture, what they've gone through, and all of that. So it's just showing up that makes the difference. So that's what you and I, we'll just agree to agree. We're just going to keep showing up.
definitely. You're right. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, with that being said, one of your I was telling you before we started here, I was going back and forth on different topics. I'm reading a book and I'm like, man, these are some great questions that we can kind of discuss on the podcast. Then I found another topic I wanted to talk about, and then you know I'm always listening to you,
Mhm.
and I was like, man, there's so many people that may listen to this podcast that is not familiar with
Right.
Terrilyn. So I thought about, the one that you talked about, your childhood.
Yes.
And I was like, man, that would definitely be a blessing, to someone. So with that being said, because I mean I heard some things that I never knew about you and
Right.
stuff. But you had the privilege of living in England.
I
This
did.
experience, Some good, some not so good. It's so
Right.
touching.
Yep.
Take us back to the day when you talked about your dolls falling out of the case in the airport and how your life will be changed, you know, for the the following, those following 5 years were pretty
Mhm.
much life changing for you.
Absolutely. So the episode that you're referring to, I talked about um, just the things that I have overcome and walking through different experiences, and that was definitely an analogy that I use. As a child growing up in England, my father was in the military, and so with him being in the military, he had an assignment overseas. And what some people may think is such a glorious, wonderful assignment to have, it was in a lot of ways, but in a lot of other ways, the dysfunction within my family came to light. And some of that dysfunction was me having my innocence taken as a young child. And where it would be a life changing experience to be in another country, it became a dark shadow, an imprint on what my future would be as far as relationships with men, with women, with people. And so the analogy that I used was there was an episode in our lives where we had to run across the airport. And my sister and I have a younger sister and an older sister, but my younger sister and I had Barbies and all those collections that you have as little girls. And there was a case that my mom was carrying, and we were running through the airport, and the case fell open and all of the Barbies came out. And as we were putting the Barbies back in, what it reminded me of is how everything that was being put in the case was the pieces of my life that were being put away and not recognized by everybody else, the things that were going on. Because there was a lot of hurt that was going on in my family, a lot of family dynamics that weren't positive, that weren't good, but also a lot of joy that was a part of what's going on in the family that was being created by my parents. So, I mean, it was just a quick analogy just to show how those broken pieces were coming out, but how a lot of families in their dysfunction put everything in the case and keep going in order not to deal with it. But me, being a young child, and as I became an adult, became more insightful, more objective of the experiences that I have, that whether they were good or not so good, it wasn't going to define me, because when I became a believer in Jesus Christ, that's what defined me. That's what made all those things that were not so good became an experience that I'd be able to share with other people. Back to Romans 8:28, that all things work together for good.
Yeah.
It's those things that are not so good and those things that are good that you can use, because there were going to be other people that experience some of the heartbreak or the violation that I felt as a little person, and the night terrors, all those things that are symptoms of a deeper root of a tragedy that happened. So that was one of the things, and it's just the different episodes that I actually get to talk about on the podcast in different situations with friends and whomever that we have on the podcast. They examine real situations where people have overcome those situations in order to get the wisdom of knowing that they went through that and they went through it. They're not overcome by it. So if someone can hear that, they know that they're not alone. I
Mhm.
mean, many times I've heard you talk about different things that you've gone through. And because you went through it, you're able to help somebody else pull them out of it, or that they see a different perspective or picture of what God has created. I just think it's real important for us to know that God never leaves us. So, regardless if there's something terrible or something wonderful, we have to be the same level and consistent, just like you mentioned about showing up, to know that He's there for us and He's there to help us interpret the bad and the great, to know that
Yeah.
He is who He is.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I love your strength. And when you talk about this, I just hear that freedom, in your voice, because there are so many people that talk about things, that happened to them
Mhm.
in their past. And even though they seem like they have, you know, pushed their way out of it. You know, they were able to go back and rescue that person from their past and build their way over it. Sometimes you still can hear that pain in their voice.
That's right. Yeah.
And you know, when I hear you talk, you know, I hear, you know, that strength, you know, and that goes back to, you know, how you talked about how you found a way, you know, to go through your childhood trauma. And you said one of the things you said was it's not about what happened to you, it's about how you respond
That's
to
right.
what happened to you and how you apply that response to your life today. Break this
Yeah.
down for me.
Well, you bring up a really good point because, and I want to be clear, when I go through things, or even me myself, there are opportunities for me to go back. And what I mean by that is
Mm,
there are opportunities to go back to what was done or
yes.
what I went through or how I felt about the situation. There's always an opportunity to go back. We see that probably even in relationships. I know I see it in my relationship with my husband. I've been with him for so many years, but I can go back and remember back on the 12th of January when he didn't do X, Y, and Z, right? Well, it's the same thing that happens when we have trauma or things that are marked inside of our heart or in our life. It's not a mark that really can be erased, but it's a mark that doesn't have as deep of a wound or deep
Yeah.
mark as you go on. So to be truthful and just be extremely transparent, you always have an opportunity to go back. But what you do with that opportunity is what makes the difference. I don't have 100% wonderful, great days or experiences all the time. But what I do have is a constant check to know that I'm moving through something and that what I went through doesn't define where I am at or where
Mm,
I'm going. And so if you have that, you may have moments where you don't feel so great or moments that you're reminded, but it's the hours that you spend going forward that make all the difference. So one
yeah.
thing that I've done with myself and I've done taught to my children, my friends or whatever, you can feel however you want to feel. But I often give myself a time limit and say, okay, you can feel whatever you want to feel, all of that. And then after that, you need to put it away and move towards what you need to move towards. So that's how I would respond to things that have happened because the truth is a truth. When you have tragedy or bad things happen to you, you don't want to deny the truth because that's where you're talking about the freedom doesn't take place. But if I acknowledge what that truth is and my powerlessness to do something about it, but the power that I have to know and own it, it's a whole different conversation because the
Yeah.
next conversation becomes with the freedom to be able to help someone else
Hmm.
or to help myself know that I forgive myself. I realize it wasn't my fault. All of those things that allow me to be free. And so I mean, I don't know how some people do it without God, to tell you the truth. I don't know. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I have a relationship with the one that created me. And because he created me, I know he knows every single little detail. And there was a point in my life that I used to blame God for different negative things that have happened to me as a child because I'm a child. Like, how, what? Don't you love me? Don't you care about me? And what God showed me one time was he absolutely cared about me. And he showed me in a room where things were happening to me that there were angels weeping on the other side of the room,
Hmm.
and to let me know, of course, I love you and care about you, but this is not my world. So when people say, well, God is real, why does he let people starve? Well, this is not his world. He has us as free will agents that are committed to make a change for the things that happen in this world. So it's not a matter of God not loving and caring about you. He was weeping and mourning when negative things happened to me or happened to us, but his power is tied when it isn't his world that's going on. And it doesn't mean he doesn't have authority over the devil. We all know as believers he does. But there are certain things that are cause and effects and parents and authority that we give over, all of those things that become a deeper conversation, but a real conversation to know that God loves you and that he cares about you and that he offers a path for you to be restored so that you don't have to live with whatever label you have put on you or whatever you've gone through.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. You know, I just actually did a post on Friday, I believe, where I talked about, knowing the difference between knowing the difference between temptation and a test.
Mm,
And just how what you briefly just summed up at the end is like, yeah, we know that God has all power, over, the enemy, but at the same time, that doesn't mean he's not going to allow the enemy to send us some tests
right.
sometimes. But at the same time, he's not going to allow those tests to crush us.
That's right.
We just have to be strong enough to have that faith that, you know, we will get past it. Like you said earlier, it's okay to lay in it for a little bit, but
That's right.
eventually you got to get up and push
Have to.
forward.
I
And
do.
when you have that true relationship
Mhm,
with Christ, and you that person that you get up in the morning, you meditate, you pray,
mhm,
and you go through your day, standing firm on the word, and then that test hits you somewhere in
mhm.
life, and you're like, why me? Why I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. And he's like, why not you? You're built for this, but at the same time, eventually you will hear him say, okay, get up.
Right.
You didn't lay in it long enough. Get up and move. You have purpose on the inside of you.
That's right.
Do
That's right.
not let this, halt your growth.
Absolutely. And you said it right there. When you said that you were built for it, how many things, if we really sat down and thought about everything that we've gone through that was negative or a test or trial, how many things that you did not think that you were capable of dealing with that you overcame?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
almost a trust. It's a trust thing. It's like God trusts you that
Hmm.
you would be able to lean on Him and overcome it. And He needs that trust to be an example for people who don't know Him. He
Right.
don't I mean, he doesn't need us. He trusts us and he wants us to be able to glorify him and bring people back to the understanding that me too, I had that happen. There's so many different stories of people going through things. I think I was telling my daughter one time, when you get ready to have your children, everyone has a different birthing story. But it's the same process for everybody. So that's what you'll hear people talk about when people are expecting and they start talking about, well, my story was this and my story was that. Everybody has a different story, but it's the same process. So when you understand that you have a different story, but it's the same process, we all win. And there's no story
Yeah.
that's better or greater than another. They're just different.
Yes. Yes.
Very, very good. That's good. But yeah, I love it. I love it when people, like when you're mentioning what you heard. I love it when people say something that wasn't rehearsed, say something that was authentic that they got out of the podcast. And I know you love this too,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you weren't creating it for them to hear that one thing and hold on to it. You were sharing your heart and what you know to be true. And for them to agree or it resonates with somebody, it's amazing.
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
what just being able to show up is because what you're saying makes a difference. And whether it's
Right.
little or big, it's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Really awesome.
You know, um, Off topic, but yesterday, I flew to Midland, Texas on Saturday
Mhm,
to do a photo shoot, and I was a turnaround trip. Came back yesterday, so I go to the gas station once I fly back in. Stop at the gas station to get gas, and I look over and I see this lady. She's an elderly lady, and she's trying to put air in her tire. And
mhm,
I look over at her, and I'm like, I'm tired. I've been up since 2:30 this morning.
mhm.
It's now what 12:30 here, and I'm like, I'm going home. I heard God plain as day say, "Go help that lady." I was like, okay. So I said, "You need help?" And she was like, "I think I do." So I walk over there. It was at Quick Trip, and the nozzle was gone. So she
Mhm.
had the whole thing down on the tire stem, but the nozzle was gone off of the thing. So I'm like, this is broken, ma'am. Her tire was totally flat. So I'm like, geez, now I'm going from putting air in it to changing the tire.
Wow.
So I open up her little thing and everything. She's in a little small SUV. And so get the tire out and everything. And when I go to loosen the lug nuts, whoever had put the tire on had stripped the lug nuts. So I'm putting it on and it's literally just spinning around. Spinning.
Oh,
It wasn't gripping anything. So I'm like, ma'am, this doesn't even fit because your lug nuts has been stripped. And she was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I'm like, well, we can leave it here. I can take you, to your house. Do you have anyone that can come pick you up? So
mhm.
anyway, she had roadside assistance. Well, she had one of those things. I forget what it was called, but anyway, she didn't. They were called. She was trying to. Well, first she was trying to tell her phone to call the place, but I figured out. I'm like, ma'am, you don't have the number programmed in your phone, so
Right.
it's not going to call. So she was able to find the information in her glove compartment, and she was just all over the place. So I was able to call the people for him and was able to give the information and everything. And just saying that to say, they was like, he was like, luckily I have someone within 5 minutes of her,
Oh,
so I can have them there within 5 minutes. If we can't get the lug nuts off, we can have it towed. She has free towing and all of that. And, I was, when I got in my car and left after the guy arrived, I'm like, you know, I looked over there and I'm thinking about myself,
yeah.
and I was like, I'm not going to help her. But I was glad I was obedient to God's voice. And I went over, and during the time, we were talking, and, she was like, I'm normally not this welcoming to people, but it's just something about your persona, something about your voice. She was like, it's just something different about you. I don't know what it is. And then we talked a little while. She was like, you have a story, huh? You have a story. I see it in your eyes. You have a story, huh? And I was like, yes, ma'am, I do. And I just was gonna leave it at that. And then she was like, I have a son. And she was like, I just came from church. And she was like, I really would be saying, why me? I just really had a great time at church. And right now I could be saying, why me, God? Why you choose me to give this flat tire to? And she was like, but my son really has been taking me through. Her son is going through what I went through 20 years ago.
Wow.
And one of the things she said to me was, a lot of people are just telling me to just let him suffer. She was like, but I can't throw my hands up. She was like, he
Wow.
can't get any money from me. He can't get any more money from me. And I told him he can't stay under my roof. She was like, but one thing that I know that I can continue to do for him is
Mhm.
pray. And I was like, ma'am, her name was, matter of fact, her name was Ollie, Miss Ollie. And I said, Miss Ollie, that's what my mother did. I said, she stopped doing everything for me but praying
Mhm.
because she saw something in me. She knew the little boy that she had raised, and she knew that I had got caught up in something that was, it was larger than me, but she knew I had the strength on the inside of me to grow out of it if I would just realize what I had on the inside of
Right,
me.
right, right,
And, so I'm saying that to say I wasn't able to help her change her tire. I wasn't able to
right.
put air in the tire, but I was able to give her
That's right.
some inspiration that as long,
Right.
her son still has a chance.
That's right. And you gave her hope.
Right.
You gave her hope.
Right.
God used you just to come across her path to remind her that this is what hope looks like.
Right.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Totally made my day. Totally made my day. And I was going back and forth, which when I figured out what we were going to talk about, I'm like, okay, what am I going to title it? And then once again, your podcast helped me because you talked about springing back into shape after being bent.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's my motto all day, which is bounce back better. So, I'm like, man, I'm gonna name it. I'm going to title it Springing Back into Shape After Being Bent, because I truly believe that no matter what someone has been through, what they look like, how strong or weak their self esteem may be, as long as you have a pulse,
Yeah.
you have that ability to bounce back better, which basically is your podcast, resilience. You
Oh,
know,
thank you.
define your definition of resilience.
Well, resilient, I think. I know it's been a trendy word lately, but resilience is actually more of a process than anything. I think that resiliency in itself is the entire process of when you go through and you recognize what you've gone through, what it took to get through there. I think oftentimes, I think we really, as a people, are so resilient because when we go through things, we not only go through and overcome them, we use what we've gone through to help us go through something else a little bit deeper or more. I think that we as a people stand on the shoulders of other people that taught us how to be resilient. We
Mm,
are resilient as a people, and that process looks like, you have something that you're going through, whether it be something good or something not so good. And as you go through that process, you're learning about what you need to do in order to handle that process. You're learning about what you shouldn't or shouldn't have done that got you into that process. And then you're learning how to get through the process and then turn around and look at what you've done to take credit for everything that you developed within that process. So
yeah.
overall, it's just an overall process of coping, of dealing, and we get stronger and stronger. I have researched a lot and seen a lot of people who are addicts, drug
Hmm.
addicts, women that have committed these offenses and that kind of thing, and they go to a housing unit or supportive residential treatment program. And I've seen that those people come out with more quality relationships. They come out with a better support system because they've been at the place where society or others think that they're at the lowest. But
Yeah.
what they create out of that becomes so strong and so genuine and so transparent that they mean what they say. They know people around them that are going to do what they said they were going to do. And they come out with a quality that nobody can touch. Nobody can, they've been through the fire and they're golden. They're amazing. And there's so many people that have that inside of them that don't take credit for it. They don't
Yes.
know. They don't know that they're resilient. They don't know that them making it through was a part of them developing the character of who they are supposed to be. So that's what resilience
Right.
is to me all the way around. And we have so many different levels of resiliency. There's so many children that are resilient,
Hmm.
people that are resilient going through this pandemic, and family members that you lost, that you had to, a whole new world was created for us with the pandemic and all of what that means. And it's just, we're just resilient. We're resilient as a people. The shooting of the young man right now, time and
Yeah.
time again, we've had our people that have been murdered. And we have to not get hard hearted about it, but we have to become resilient about it and see, well, what action can I do?
Yeah.
I teach my children, I teach my grandchildren, what they need to know, not just to get through, but to survive and to cope, and what change is going to be on their heart to make a difference in this world. So that's what resilience means to me. And I think it's one of the most important things that we can recognize in order for us to have emotional intelligence to move forward.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. Yeah. And, when you were talking about, some of these people that go into, the recovery homes and stuff, and how the strength that they come out with, for myself, it was more, it was pretty much, I can definitely relate to that because my credibility
Yeah.
pretty much with everybody had just been dismantled. I
Yeah.
had no credibility with anyone. And basically, when I started to rebuild my life, one of the things that stood out to me was not approaching some of the people that I had hurt, you
Mhm.
know, during my addiction too fast because they
Okay.
may not accept me because the Eric that they knew had cried wolf so many times, the Eric that they knew pretty much was had said he was changing, and within 2 or 3 weeks or so he was back to doing the same thing. So basically for me, I started to, you know, build that credibility within myself, meaning
Right.
building confidence
Right.
up within myself and staying kind of at a distance from people that may, you know, hurt me when I
Right.
was trying to rebuild me. And it pretty much got to the point that I didn't care what anybody thought of me
Mhm.
because I had God working through me. And
Yep.
what happened, the more and more that God worked through me, it started to bring that glow on the outside of me.
Right.
And some of those same people that I was wary of approaching, they
Mhm.
started approaching me because
That's
they
right.
was like, they could see that change.
Absolutely.
So I could relate to what you were saying about some of them. They come out and they're full of fire.
Yeah.
They have a new high and new outlook on life. And you realize, I wasted so much of my life doing the
Yeah.
wrong things. Now you are hungry,
Mhm.
to recap and go back and capture some of
Exactly.
that stuff that you lost. You
Exactly.
know,
Exactly.
yeah,
But
definitely.
and it also, just with everything that you're saying is so true. And the point of view that you can speak from is the most powerful one.
Yes.
That helps somebody to know I've been there, done that, and because I've been there and done that, this is what I would help you or recommend. Or your story is going to be different than mine, but it's still the same process to help you
Right.
get to where it is that you want to go. But
Yeah.
I have a couple. There are a couple episodes that come to mind thinking about resiliency. I have a gentleman that he was had to learn how to forgive himself. That
Mm,
throughout his life, he was almost in a imposter syndrome, and it caused him, he was unfaithful to his wife and had to really learn who he was. I had another young lady that she's got a divorce. Her love story changed. There were so many different stories that are out there that people we know, people we love, and people we don't know. So it's just an important topic. Another gentleman, he was diagnosed telling him he would never walk again, and he's walking around DJing now. There's
yeah.
just so many different things out there where you believe what you hear and you believe what you walk in. And when you have someone that can speak to a part where you are to help you see where you can go, it's just amazing. So, thank you for all of your work. You've done some really good shows where you're really speaking to people that are some hard subjects that people don't want to talk about, but
Right.
really they would face them. It would help them get to another level. And I think for me, the biggest thing about overcoming the different things that I've gone through, it allows me to be able to help other people. And then that helping other people reminds me of my healing. It really
Right.
reminds me of my healing, that I'm not 100%. I don't ever proclaim to be 100%. But the more that I help someone else, it's not to hide from what I need to deal with. It's cathartic that it allows me to help them be better because that's what God would want us to do. And it just feels good. It's a good feeling to help other people, especially when you know the outcome can be good for them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that's like if only more people could see the potential in
Hmm.
people, instead of labeling people for what they see in their current situation. Um, you talked about that empathy
Hmm.
for, seeing people for what they can become,
That's
you
right.
know, and I think one of the things, is a lot of the world, they look past people that's hurting
Yes.
instead of being a crutch for them,
Hmm.
and it's like it's so many people that don't have any compassion,
Yeah.
for people that's, just in a bad place in life today.
And that's a real reality. And unfortunately is, there are a lot of people that are believers like you and I that don't have the hope, the faith, or the discipline to be able to be a source for anybody. It's unfortunate. I said that my husband and I, we pastor a church, and we love our church, we love the word of God and all of that, but there are a lot of people that are hurting that are coming to the church and not received the way that Jesus would want them to be received.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that in this church that we have and other churches that are out there, everyone says that they're ready to
Yeah.
help those that are lost.
Yeah.
Can't really help people that are lost when you're judging them according to what you think it should be.
Come on. Yeah.
So it's just a real reality. So until we get back to the basics of loving God the way and receiving God's love, because you have to receive it in order to give it. So receiving God's love and being more of a witness to what God wants to do rather than a judge will set so many people free. And it's sad at this time. And I know a lot of, Republican, Democrat, whatever political affiliation, whatever's going on in the political scene, the bottom line is until we get to the point where we can look at people as people and see hurting people and helping people, you're gonna get wound up into things that have no concern of you. I mean, we either believe the Bible or we don't. Jesus either won or he didn't. So if Jesus
Right.
won, what's your focus?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're ignorant to everything that goes on, but where's your heart in the whole situation? What's
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
don't get me started, Eric.
Yeah.
I'll go on.
Yeah, but you hit the nail dead on the head. You know, we want to, you know, there are so many people that walked away from the church,
Hmm.
and we want to get them back to the church,
Right.
but at the same time, and that's, I tell the story all the time. That's why that's one of the main reasons that I created the LifeStruction platform, because I want to be able to, you know, gain the attention of people that stepped
Mhm.
away from the church. That's why I touch up on a lot of these edgy topics,
Right.
that a lot of people won't touch up on, and they're definitely not going to talk about it in church. But my thing is, when someone that's going through some of this stuff, prostitution,
Yeah.
addicted to
Real stuff.
porn,
Yep.
stuff like that, and they make their way back into church, and they walk through that door, and when they walk in the door, everybody go,
Right. Exactly.
you know, what
Exactly.
what has she got on?
Right.
Why does he have a wave cap on his head? And
Exactly.
but people, listen, if they keep coming and they
Mhm.
keep receiving the word of God and they keep applying the word of God, you're going to see these small things start to
Right.
change. The wave cap is going to come off. The skirt is going to come from her thigh down to the top of her knee.
Right.
The more that she comes, it may come to the bottom of her knee. But
Exactly.
at the end, give these people a chance.
It's true. It's true. And I know, there's no perfect church. And if you think it's perfect, it becomes not perfect when you walk in it.
Right.
Um, but I know that we're striving to be good stewards over our church, and other churches out there are doing the same thing, where we're trying to create an environment of love that allows transformation. Because it's not
Yeah.
us that changes people. It's
Hmm.
not us. If it was, then we'd have everybody in every neighborhood would look just like y'all.
Right.
It's not us. It's a heart transformation. And the word of God is the only thing I know that does that. But to your
Hmm.
point, people have to give themselves time and space to
Right.
allow God to do whatever. But if you're not open to receive people that are coming in, however they're coming in, then you are being a judge, not a witness to what God wants to do. And I don't have time for people to judge. I mean, good Lord, there's been so many situations where I have been judged according to what someone else thinks a first lady should be,
Mm.
um, a wife should be, a mother should be. There's been so many opportunities that people have come against me and want to judge me. And the best thing that I can give them is no response or nothing that's going to
There it
change
is.
them.
There it
That's
is.
the best gift I can give them, because they're not ready for me, because they're putting focus on me and they're not putting focus on them. So they're not ready. And it's
Right.
okay. I'm not ready for them. But I
Right.
never even took time to try to judge them.
Right.
We just have to get in a good heart. See, I mean, my husband always teaches us every day that we have to forgive. We really have to get in a space where you forgive. You forgive those that judge you, forgive those that, persecute, all of those things. But more importantly, you forgive yourself for putting yourself in a situation or place that you have taken everything that you went through with you.
Right. Right.
So it's a good thing. And so I'm just grateful for you to have these topics that people start talking about.
Mhm.
I love doing the work that we're doing on the Resilience Living podcast, because it allows people even a moment in time to realize that the world is bigger than just their own experiences and their feelings. So I think we're making a difference, and that always feels good. Always.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because every time I'm like, you know what? I'm not even I think I'm just going to back off and stop doing it. And then of course someone sends that email or that review is dropped, and they're talking about how, like you said earlier, something stood out to them,
That's right.
something that we like last week. I had just flew back in Sunday from my dad's funeral, and last Monday I was like, my wife was like, are you going to do a podcast? And I was like, no. And then I was like, well, maybe I should. And it was my shortest podcast ever. I think it was like 9 minutes and some odd seconds. And I had more people that, sent me messages about it, and then some of the people that actually knew that my dad had passed away, they was like, well, thank you for pushing through your pain
Yeah.
to create this episode. I definitely needed this. And when you talked about such and such and such, that really hit home for me. And I'm like, okay, thank you, God, for giving me the strength to, to
Absolutely.
push through. Cause like I said early on, just when we don't want to do it, there's people
That's right.
that dependent on us.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about your dad. I'm sorry about that, but we'll
Yeah.
see him again. We'll see him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is that pain, that transparency that pushes you forward, that touches people's lives. And you know what? I really just truly believe that when you talk about the blueprint, it means something.
Hmm.
I think sometimes people in their dimension, they're just, thinking one dimension, and they don't see God's in 12 or 50 different dimensions at one time. They don't see anything other than their story and how it relates to the people that they're with.
Hmm.
When you talk about a blueprint is something that was designed for you, something that doesn't look like everybody else. And when I think we go through this life understanding what that blueprint is, like you just like certain things because that's what God put inside of you to like. That you like these colors, you have these gifts, these skills, and all of that. That's a part of your blueprint. So
Right.
our job is to walk through this life discovering what's all in our blueprint.
Yeah.
Because when you understand it and you know it, how effective can you be? I've
Right.
never not known a home to be constructed and be fully functional without knowing what that particular area or department does in that house.
Right.
So it's fundamental what you're saying when you talk about a blueprint. You have to keep talking. You have to keep going because there are things and people that are assigned to you that you'll be able to speak to and nobody else can hear from them but you. So that's the podcast talk in us that we keep encouraging one another because it
Right.
it makes a difference and the intention behind what we're doing is really not for self. I mean, I'd love for it eventually to become something that gives back to me.
Right.
Monetize it.
Right.
That would be amazing. That would be great.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
that happens, we were here.
Hmm.
We were here trying to make a difference and not for those monetary things. We were here making a difference by sharing our stories or our hearts or things that come to mind or experiences. And it has to
Right.
mean something. It has to mean something. And that's just what I believe. And I think I'm honored to do this with you, to know that
Yeah.
we're making one difference. Because it just takes one person. You think of
Right.
I always think of, people come to our church and there are people that dedicate their lives to God or people that listen to the podcast and they make a change. And, sometimes I think, man, and when I get to heaven, will there be people that come up and say, hey, thank you for what you said and all that? And, just in my prayer time, the Lord's like, yeah, there will be. And I'm like, how awesome is that? That I never
Yeah.
knew their faces, but by my spirit and by them connecting, they got
Yes.
more than what I ever knew that I could give to them.
Right.
It's just a good thing. It's
Yes,
just
it is. Yes, it is.
good.
Yeah. Um, Earlier we were what was it? When I talked about how many episodes you had versus
Yes.
mine, and one of the things you said to me was about not comparing myself to others. That's when I was like, hey, you button into a question I'm gonna ask you
Okay.
later. So don't try to use that. don't don't try to go back and use that for you spoke about how you always like to push people to be better.
Yes.
Uh so with that being said, what would you like to see me do to add more value to myself?
You personally?
Yes.
Okay. Um, that's a good question. Let me think about it for a second. I think that you're doing all things good. So let me say that first. I think the value that I know that is inside of you is bringing those people in your life that have heard that to hear from them and paint the full picture of what it is that you've gone through and those that have shaped you and have been a part of your story. I'd love to see that because it's almost like we have a picture, but the color isn't very dark. And I think they would add color to your story
Mm-hmm.
and people would be able to hear and know and see themselves. So your wife is a great example that, she loves you and she loves the you that everybody else doesn't know behind the mic.
Right.
So
Right.
those type of experiences add to who you are. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that that would be insight that would turn you inside out to really kind of show all your colors and all of that. And I think that would be amazing. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think that would be awesome because then people would be able not only hear you, but
Yeah.
see the whole story. Your daughters would be amazing to hear what
Mm-hmm.
they have to say. And I think what it does, I know what it did for me, hearing my husband, my daughter, and my kids. It actually allows you to hear um, what it is that you didn't know that you were giving.
Right.
Because our heart's desire as parents is always for our children to be seen and to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
You would get that back because you'd be able to see how they see you. And I think that that adds more to your heart because it's really the heart of who you are. You want,
Right.
your
Right.
whole. That would be amazing. I think that that would be amazing to see the people that are most closest to you, a part of your story, be able to hear and see. And it doesn't have to be something, talked about. Just the generic getting them and having a conversation. I think you'll learn so much more. And that's where the questions will come from next about what you want to ask. Because that's how I do it. We didn't sit down, we didn't talk about, we're going to talk about this and that. We just
Right.
had a
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think those are the ones that organically become out of your heart,
Oh
and you
yeah.
really are able to hear more than or think about things that you didn't even think how that looked or sounded. So
Yeah.
that would be my answer for you, sir, to have
Okay.
more for the people that are around you that are a part of your story.
Okay. Well, uh, she's asked me a few times, when you gonna let me be on your podcast? And but she's very shy. She do her own thing. So I'll be thinking she's joking, but she's asked me a few times. So yeah, so she's gonna watch this and she's gonna be like, I told you. So
Yeah,
yeah, we definitely gonna work that out.
yeah, it would be great. I think you'd be surprised by what she would say.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's just a bigger picture. I learned so much. Like I said, I've known my husband for like forever. He has my 20s, my 30s, my 40s. He has all them years, them decade. And to hear what he has to say about me, we don't put ourselves in a position a lot of times to hear what it sounds like to the world or to other people. And it was very touching and very moving. And
Yeah.
even my children, for them to be able to have this view was just more than I had even known. So I was like, you guys can do another episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, Terrilyn, this has been amazing. Before
Awesome.
we go, what
Yes.
inspiring words could you leave with our listeners to help them? Someone that may, be going through something and something that just would inspire them to spring back into shape if they're currently, going through something.
Um, Great question. I would remind people that when you go through something, that you're going through it, that this too shall pass. Um, I know and believe that we should never think that we know all the answers, but I think that education is the most important thing to keep asking questions. If you're going through something and it's heavy, you don't have to go through it alone. You know,
Mm,
there's a God that's available for you. There's churches around you. There are people that are within your sphere of influence that really do care about you, regardless of how you feel or what you think. So I would remind you to stay out of what you feel and what you think and reach out for help. And the most important thing that I think someone should know is that the best is yet to come. The best
yeah.
is absolutely yet to come. You've already overcome a lot of things, and there are more things that you'll overcome. But when you know and understand the best is yet to come, you have no choice but to continue and
Yes.
continue well. We live in a society right now that technology is amazing. We have the opportunities to have podcasts and all of the things that you can touch from your phone. Take advantage of those things. Take advantage of that time. Don't allow what you think, the perception of others, create who you actually are. Continue to dive into who you are and get to know yourself, get to know what makes you rest, what makes you good, and what it is you really want out of any and every situation. So I think that those are probably the things that I know that I do. And I would never tell somebody to do something that I'm not doing myself. Um,
Right.
and those are the things I really think that are important for people to tap into and just know the
Hmm.
best is yet to come. Absolutely.
Yes, the best is yet to come. Yeah, basically, just believe in yourself.
Right.
Terrilyn as well as myself, we both, are products of being bent, being
Yeah.
broken, but we were able, to rebuild, and we're proud of the people that we are today, but
Absolutely.
we still haven't completed our construction.
That's right.
As
Right.
she, just in case if you tuned in late, go back and listen. But basically she talks about, she's, in the middle of her dissertation. So she's still building, still
Yes.
building upon her life. And there are so many people, but the main thing is dealing with the brokenness, going back and rescuing that broken person that still lives on the inside of us, because nothing really will blossom in your life until you rescue that broken part that's on the inside of you.
That's right.
We try to build on our life without ever going back to rescue, that broken individual on the inside of us, that broken 3-year old, that broken 8-year old, that broken 15-year old, that broken adult,
That's right.
but we fail to go back and rescue that person. And then, we get the good job, and, the bank account starts to stack up.
That's
And
right.
then it's like, why am I still unhappy?
Mm-hmm.
Because you still have something that you haven't dealt with on the inside of you, and it's very important that you do it. Like she said, you have podcasts you can listen to, you have people that you can connect with. There's always Google. There's always
Right.
somebody that you can find and connect with that's out right now spreading that awareness about something that they were able to rescue them, that broken part of them, and
That's
build
right.
upon it. And they're out here spreading that awareness, giving away those free tools to
That's
help you, you know, become a better you. So definitely, it's okay, like we said earlier, to lay in it, but don't lay there too long. Get
That's
up,
right. That's right.
rescue yourself, and make something out of your life. Make something out of
Awesome.
your life. Um,
That's good.
for those of you that want to connect with Terrilyn, I will make sure that I put the link to the Resilient Living podcast. It will be in the footer on whatever platform you're listening on. That footer will be in there. Make sure that you click on that link, and listen, she has a lot of episodes, and every one of them, there's something of value that you can pull out of those podcasts. So make sure that you click on that link that's in the footer, and support her. She's doing great things, and more than anything, she does it from the heart. She does, she has a heart for what she does. She does it from the heart, and basically her information is very, very powerful as well as valuable. So once again,
Yeah.
what days do you release your podcast?
On every Wednesday,
Every
we have
Wednesday.
what we
Okay.
call Wisdom Wednesday. So that's when a new episode will drop on
Gotcha.
whatever platform you hear your podcast on.
Perfect. Perfect. So yeah, definitely connect with her. Terrilyn, thank you so much.
Oh,
Uh
thank
this
you
was
for
this
having me.
this was amazing. Every question I asked, you're a pro. Every question that I asked you, it just rolled straight off the tongue. Great. I mean, your experience is just over the top. I
Uh,
love it. I love it. So
well,
yeah,
you know,
thank
I appreciate you, Eric. You keep doing what you're doing. We'll be always be in this game together. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yes.
thank you for having me. Thank you for sharing my information. It's awesome. So we'll have to do it again. Maybe we'll get our spouses together next time and let them talk.
Yeah,
It'll
definitely.
be fun.
Yeah, that would be. That would be. Yeah, we definitely going to have to do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah, we definitely going to have to do it once or twice a year. We definitely going to have to,
perfect.
you come on mine once, I come on yours once, and
Sounds
yeah,
good.
we just going to, keep feeding hope to some people.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? What I'll do is I'll make sure we need to make sure that they know that you actually were one of my guests on my podcast. So we'll have to get that episode information for them so that they know that as well, that you could post that because they need to hear from you as well. And it was a great time. Great time.
Definitely. You know what? And you just brought something to my attention because I said that I was going to, because I posted it when we first released it, but I guess from what I was told, we should be posting links at least, if not every month, every other month of other podcasts and platforms that we have appeared on
Yes,
because people, like you said, they can hear my story, but it also gives that exposure to yourself. And because people are not always going to see it when you post it. So it's, crucial that you continue to post these links because that's the only way that we're going to gain that exposure.
yep, I totally agree. Matter of fact, I actually let me give you your podcast op what you were on. Just for those that are listening, you were in episode 26. It was
Okay.
from one podcaster to another, Eric Winfield. So,
Episode 26.
episode 26 in July of 2022.
Yeah,
So
well, I do remember it was hot.
it
I do
was
remember it was
good.
hot.
So
So yeah.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode, LifeStruction family. And thank you once again, Terrilyn, for tapping in, taking the time, and blessing us with your wisdom and strength. So yeah, until next week, guys, you have a blessed week. And remember, smile from the heart. It's going to bless somebody's day. With that being said, have a great week.